Ahoy, Libelit, herzlich willkommen, and a warm welcome to all of you from Berlin studio here from FFA 2020. I am Heike Zeller, and I will be your moderator for the next 75 minutes. Yeah, welcome to the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, which is normally the favorite place in Brussels for debating and meeting both agriculture and environment. But of course, as we all know, due to the corona crisis, it's not possible to travel and to have everything in place like we're used to it. But so the FFA team decided to switch it to online. And so this event and the following event will be online. And also this one will be recorded and you can have a look at it or send it to somebody else from tomorrow on. We have a nice program for you, and of course, I would like to tell you some logistics firsthand, because we have some very good speakers here in Berlin and both in Brussels, where we'll hand over later. But we will also ask you for your contribution, and we have several ways to do it. We have, for example, a Mentimeter, where you can vote for some questions we provided. You can see the link below the box you can see me now in. Please go there. You also need a 6-digit code, which is 103306, and put it in and please answer the question. We will come back to them during the show. And we have another way to contribute. Please submit your questions. You can do this in the chat box below, or you can go to Twitter using the hashtag FFA2020. So my colleagues can check through your questions and send them to me here in a filtered way. And then we will be able to get it to the speakers. I would like to thank the FFA partners for sponsoring this event, so to make this all happen. These partners are European Landowners Organization and Syngenta as the founding partners for FFA. And then the further partners, the Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Fund, Rabobank, Cargill, Thought for Food, the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, Friends of the Countryside, John Deere, the Rice Foundation, and Coca-Cola. And here in Germany, especially for this event, Familienbetriebe, Land und Forst. Thank you to all the partners. Let's enjoy the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce the speakers, first here in Berlin and then in Brussels to you. On my left-hand side is Prinz Löwenstein. He's the chairman of the Bund Ökologische Lebensmittelwirtschaft, which is an umbrella organization of the organic farm and food sector here in Germany. Then, on my right-hand side, it's Dr. Gero Hocker. He's member of the parliament, the federal German parliament. And on the very right-hand side, it's Dr. Julia Köhn. She's CEO and founder of Pillars, and also the chairwoman for the German Agri-Food Society. And now, I would like to hand over to our friends in Brussels. There we have Catherine Gisler-Lanielle, the deputy head of the cabinet, Commissioner Wojciechowski. And last but now first, Janis Potocznik, the chairman of FFA, both and also Rice Foundation. Dobar dan, Janis, may I ask you for your opening speech, please?
Dobar dan, Heike. Thank you. And first of all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Strange days, to put it mildly. And Catherine, thank you for joining me here in Brussels studio. As many of you know, we were not able to meet with you in Brussels at the end of March, as we have planned, for obvious reasons of safety. And together with the FFA strategic partners, we were forced to cancel the event. However, life goes on. And we are excited to see, or at least feel, so many of you here today. I have heard that more than 1,000 have registered to this webinar. Now that most countries have begun to flatten the curve of new infection, at least in Europe, and at least for some unknown period, and our public and private lives are beginning to open again, we could face an even greater challenge than the pandemic itself, shaping a lasting and sustainable recovery. The post-corona world today looks exactly like the old one. Farmers are back to how they have worked before. Ships are filling our sea lanes, and your supermarkets will not have changed much, apart from the longer queue to get in. The world has not changed much. At best, we understand it a bit more. Unless we demand it is different, the recovery will easily allow it to go back to all the bad habits we embraced so warmly before. And we must demand it. I do not have the time to go into detail today, but in comparison to the hard sprint that we have just run to protect ourselves from disease, protecting the climate and global biodiversity from ourselves, it's a marathon. Given the extraordinary expenditures now laid out or proposed by our governments, we have every right to demand, not just as taxpayers, but as citizens and neighbors, that all of it comes with serious green string attached. In some ways, it is fortunate that the European Union has already put many strategies in place before the outbreak hit, starting with the European Green Deal and followed by many others, the Farm to Fork and biodiversity strategies, and now joined by the European Union Recovery Plan. This time, we are much more prepared to act swiftly and intervene deeply. We must use this extraordinary moment of crisis to define the next decades. The recovery must be based on the principles of circular economy and sustainability. It is absolutely necessary for the protection of our nature, homes, and lives. It is, or at least should be, unconditional. With it, we can also create the economy of the future. Where Europe missed the moment with the digital revolution, we can lead the circular, creating prosperity and opportunities for new green jobs. This would also put us back on a digital agenda, since it is an important circular economy enabler. The pandemic has shown us how dependent we are on our neighbors for food, for medicine, for protective equipment, for our survival. But it has also shown us how fragile current economic model has made our world and how unevenly its gains have been distributed. The food system cannot be immune to these challenges. Under the influence of a new political direction, hopefully matched and resourced by the Common Agriculture Policy, it must urgently make the transition. This moment of recovery is use it or lose it, and we cannot afford to lose it. The transition must make extraordinary and irreversible leaps today, in this moment of crisis. There is greater faith in and dependency on government and science than in at least a decade. However, we must be honest. Not all sectors of the food system will emerge in the same shape as they were before. Some, like, for example, livestock, will be probably more exposed. Those affected negatively must be helped. The transition must be just, or there will be no transition. But we cannot cling tightly to a vanishing past, or it will drag us into oblivion. One of the main reasons for the necessity of the Green Deal is certainly the fact that we are indebting future generations through depletion of our natural capital. We are privatizing the profits and socializing the costs, and have done so for centuries. We cannot leave the next generation with all the debt, both financial and environmental, without providing them with at least a promise and a solution of a better world than the one we are currently living in. They are rightly demanding it and will not be quiet forever. The last few days have shown us the power of sustained civil protests, and don't think that today's youth will sit quietly by. No moment of crisis is easy or comes with a heavy cost, but it is here, and we must act swiftly and with purpose. To do otherwise, to go back to the old ways that we knew were broken before, would be more than irresponsible. It is the worst thing we could do to ourselves and to the future generations. I look forward to today's discussions and hope that they help inspire you to become part of the change yourself. All this, after all, will benefit you as much as your neighbors. And this is another important lesson we have learned in the last few months. Good neighbors are important. I wish you a productive conference, and I thank you for listening. Now, it's my great privilege to introduce here in the studio Catherine. It was already explained. Catherine is Deputy Head of the Cabinet of Commissioner Wojciechowski. Welcome to the studio, Catherine.
Thank you.
Actually, the first question which I have for you is the last document which the European Commission has released. It has a very telling title, Europe's Moment, Repair and Prepare for the Next Generation. So it's actually in the title itself talking about that we need to reconcile recovery efforts with the necessary greening of our economy. Can you give us, please, a brief analysis? What do you understand are the most critical issues which are connected to the impact of COVID-19 when it comes to the food system?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is important to have, I would say, a shared analysis of the situation before we move forward and we put in place, the lessons that we have learned from the crisis. I think there are many lessons. First of all, you've mentioned already one, which is the interconnection of our agri-food sector and economy between the member states. So it's clear that food security is a European story. It's a European asset. It's a European success. That's very important. And I'm saying that even though, of course, we have recognized at the beginning of the crisis that some disruption at the borders, in fact, had made our life more complicated. And we realized that this is really important, that we have Europe and that we have free circulation of all goods. But for me, the most important thing that needs to be recognized is that in this unprecedented crisis, there has been an extraordinary resilience of our food system. That needs to be said. Not that it is a perfect food system, you've mentioned, and we need to look at the strengths and the weaknesses, but it is incredible to see how we've been able, in every corner of the EU, to have food in our plate. So not added to the health crisis, a food crisis, food shortages, which has obviously been a very positive outcome of this crisis. And it has not happened, I think, by coincidence or by chance. It's first, we need to pay tribute to the farmers, to the food workers, to the food stakeholders who've been able to manage, in difficult conditions and situations, to continue to produce our agricultural product, process them, transport them, retail them. So that's very important, and that has to be recognized. It is also probably showing how much the diversity of our food system is an asset and is helping in that sense. We have, of course, long food supply chain. We have also short food supply chain, and we probably need a combination of all that to be able to face any kind of situation. Maybe also one thing which is important is that this crisis has made us aware, maybe more than in the past, of the importance of food security. And the word is used now for many other kind of product and equipment, the open strategic autonomy of Europe, and that we have it for food, which we might not have it for, masks or protective equipments or tests, and that is very important, and we need to consolidate that. And as you said, of course, what we've learned is that the challenges that we had before the COVID-19 crisis, which are, of course, how do we improve the efficiency of our food system? How do we improve their sustainability, so the environmental and climate challenges that we have ahead? How do we manage, in fact, to address them while at the same time we need to recover? So not exclude the economic dimension, the growth dimension, and that's what everything that is about the European Green Deal, while at the same time we transform our food systems to make them more sustainable.
Thanks. If I just continue in the direction which you already started to explain, we have, by the way, quite a lot of friends from across the Atlantic also joining our discussion today. And you mentioned complications on the border. So on one hand, one of the consequences of the post-COVID, it's actually thinking about more local, but on the other hand, we also have clear commitments which are linked to the global free trade. So how to reconcile that? And could maybe the circular economy logic, which we have already incorporated in our thinking and in the Commission's documents, help in this respect?
Yes, it does, indeed. We need to, as I said, we need to have more efficient food systems. So the circular economy is also about that. How can we produce more, in a way, not just food, but also biomass? Because if we want to decarbonize our economy, we will need also agriculture and forestry. They are part of the solution. So we will, in the next 10 to 20 years, we will need to have more biomass. So how can we produce more biomass, including food and feed, while at the same time we save our resources, our natural resources, our water, our energy, our soil, and all we need to produce this. So for sure, that's part of the solution. It doesn't mean that it excludes completely trade, and I think it's important. We are a key global player. We are not self-sufficient for all our food, so we need also to import, and we think that trade from that perspective is good. But probably what needs to be further enhanced is how can we make sure that where we have maybe more weaknesses than strengths, I'm thinking in particular in terms of the feed that we import massively from some region of the world, not that we are going to stop from one day to the other, and we are not able to do that. How can we improve our resilience? How can we improve our autonomy? So it means making sure that while at the same time we continue to produce most of our food, but at the same time reduce the dependence of our food systems to external, either input or of feed and food, so that we make sure that we are really more and more resilient in a context where it becomes very, very important. I'm thinking about the impact of climate change on our food systems.
We have one last minute just for the question, which is probably one of the critical ones. We all know that the transition will actually depend on that, how we will address the social question. How actually, because raising food prices, other negative effects, including job losses and so on, how to take care for the vulnerable populations and those on low incomes, that they are not too much affected?
Well, I think it's, first of all, it's important to recognize that the price of our food is rather low, but still it is difficult for some groups of the population to get access to it, and that we need to recognize. I'm not sure here that this is about the common agricultural policy, and this policy should address that. I think it's important to say that here it's about maybe further developing social policies, but of course also making sure that those who have difficulties to get access to food because they are poor are getting, better jobs, better livelihood, so that they finally don't struggle every day to get access to good food that are produced in a sustainable manner.
Thank you, Catherine. there will be some questions coming also from the audience, where we will both have the possibility to contribute to the answers. Now, this is for now from the Brussels studio. Heike, now we are going back to Berlin. Please.
So thank you, Brussels, for your very interesting insights, Katerin and Janec. We go on with you guys over there, but first I would like to tell the audience how we will go on in this show now. First, we will have some question and answers with Brussels, and we have also a polling question. The first one, I will present the results to you. And then in this studio, we will go on with our speakers here. Everybody made a statement and they will talk it to us. And later on, very in the end, we have final Q&A session, both with Brussels and with here Berlin. So I would like to present you, first of all, the Mentimeter first question, the results of it. May I please see it on the screen? Yeah, there we have it. So the question had been, what should be the first recovery priority for the EU food system? And A, with 23 answers, 23% answers, because I can't see the screen here now. It's the strengthening cross-border trade and travel relations inside the EU. And B, with 29%, it's building local and regional food security. C, the one you tickled the most, is ensuring the recovery is as green as possible. D, maintaining international trade flows with third countries. That was the lowest percentage with 6%, and other than that was 4%. So these are quite interesting results. Maybe, Janec, you could say something about this, about the poll results?
What should I say? First, I have calculated because I don't see the screen, by the way. I have calculated what was the green, and if I'm quick enough, it's 39.
At 39, it's the ensuring the recovery is as green as possible. That was the first priority.
Yes. No, I just want to tell you that I was teaching statistics and I'm quite quick. So anyway, I'm happy with the result, because I think the most important thing which we have to do at this moment is actually understand that we are simultaneously facing 3 crises. 2 are acute. This is the economic and the health crisis, and 1 is actually chronicle, which was existing for quite a long time, and it's connected with our socio-ecological system, socio-economic system. And it is utmost important that when we release a lot of money, when we have the readiness of the governments and the amount which is necessary on the table, that we don't miss this opportunity. I think it's essential.
Thank you. I have a question by Tiglet Aslan to Katerin. It's coming to you. I would like to ask Ms. Gisela on what she thinks of the proposal in the Farm to Fork strategy to support emergence of new business models for carbon farming and finding ways to reward growers through public and private means, such as international carbon credit markets, for each ton of carbon they sequester.
So the Farm to Fork strategy, as well as the biodiversity strategy, which, and it's not by coincidence, have been published at the same time, I would say a week before, 10 days before, but it doesn't matter, than the recovery plan, precisely with the objective of making sure that, every euro that we are going to invest in the recovery and to make our economy more resilient will be linked to, the European Green Deal, so the ecological transition and the digital transition. So these 2 strategies represent a roadmap where we are going to mobilize and support the stakeholder of the food chain so that they develop, more sustainable farming practices, new business model, and what I would say, this new economy that we are looking for, which is basically how do you combine economy and environment, economy and social, economy and climate protection, so that you don't choose one or the other, but you find the way to combine all these essential elements. This is about sustainability. And so these two strategies are not the end of a process. They are indicating a couple of important targets, in particular in terms of the use of input in agriculture or the development of organic farming. And they will be supported by our common agricultural policy. The new one, the one that we will start in a couple of weeks to negotiate, and discuss with member states and with the parliament. And the CAP is going to provide the resources that we need to support the farmer, because we need to support the farmers. Make sure that, they get supported in the change that they are making of their farming practices. And that's why we are also extremely happy of the fact that we have got extra resources for the CAP in the next multi-annual financial framework. Of course, that will need to be confirmed by the Council and the Parliament, but the Commission has recognized the importance, in particular, of increasing the second pillar, the rural development resources, to make sure that we provide farmers with appropriate resources so that they can transform their farming practices.
Thank you, Catherine. I got another question from the audience. It's from Aimantas Pranauskas from Lithuania. And I would like to ask the question, pass it over to Janets. The implementation of farm-to-fork and biodiversity strategies will inevitably increase food prices. Will food prices remain reasonable for consumers, and in the long run, will supplies remain available? So this is an interesting question. I think it also just leads from where Catherine was just talking about.
We all know that when it comes to environmental questions, and in particular natural capital, that the depletion of natural capital, unfortunately, it's in many cases not part of our cost structure. And I'm not talking here only about food, I'm talking about the whole economic system. And in whatever economic sector, you would pretty much come to the same conclusion. So it could come to that if we include those to the cost system, that this will influence on the prices of the products which we are consuming. In this case, of course, the food. On the other hand, of course, it's very important that the farmers would have conditions that they can have a decent life, which sometimes, as we today know, it's not the case. That's why we are forced basically also to provide the income contributions through the Common Agricultural Policy, which money would probably be better spent if it would be spent for organizing that for the transition to a more sustainable agriculture. So I'm not saying that this is not a problem. On the contrary, I think it is a major problem if this would happen. But we would need to use the social-related policies and tools to help those who would have maybe the problem with affording that. But going in the direction like we have done in the past, that in a way the environmental policies are sacrificed to the social policies, will not solve both questions. I think it's very important that this is taken into account and that all the measures are taken, but more from a clear social policies, that we, in a way, do not subsidize also, I would say, the rich people, or at least people who can easily afford to buy the food, but on the other hand, do not provide a clear answer to those who are in deep need, that they would get access to food.
Maybe you could do an example for how this could happen, like very concrete. Do you have an idea how this could happen to maybe pricing in the real cost, as somebody say? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned socializing the costs, but privatizing the profits. So do you have an idea? I mean, this is a very big question, I know, and many people working on stuff like that. But maybe you have giving a glimpse on it, please.
My point is very simple. If you use, of course, the policies which are today pushing the food prices down from a social reason, and it's a good reason, by the way, don't underestimate that, that means that to a large extent you are sacrificing also some environmental consequences. So if you would use income support for those who are in need to get access to food, so directly to the consumer, that would probably be much better than actually subsidizing everybody in the consumption chain. So I think, and also the second question, which is very important in that, is how actually the value which is created or the value which is spent by consumers, it's distributed, and how much actually comes to the pockets of the farmers, which is again one of the critical problems. So I think that these are two problems which go into the root causes of why we are facing those problems today, which are linked to agriculture. And it's difficult to imagine that without really going depth into those questions, we would solve all the questions which are connected with agriculture. By the way, these are the questions which are connected to social policy. They are connected also with the whole food chain and so on. And it's difficult to imagine that not going broader than agriculture can provide us with convincing answers.
Thank you, Janitz. Yeah, I think it's a very broad question, of course. On the one hand side, we have the consumers. On the other side, we have the producers. So, and if we could solve these problems, we would be just better off and nobody would be here, maybe. But yeah, thank you to Brussels for now. We will see each other again in the final Q&A session. And now we come here to Berlin. And why we're in Berlin today, it's because of the presidency of for the EU Council that Germany holds from July on. This is the reason we are here in Berlin studio and hearing now some speakers from Germany as well. But before handing over to the speakers here, I would like to present you the next Mentimeter poll, which is the second question. And I wait for the results. Yes, it's here. I do feel a bit like in the Eurovision Song Contest. So, okay. Which of the following EU policies initiatives should the German presidency focus on? And with the biggest majority, it's 43% for answer number 3. That's the farm to fork strategy. And then we have a second tickled one. It's number A, the common agricultural policy. Then it's the EU budget, which is with 22%. And last one here with 9%, the EU biodiversity strategy. So I think this is really something which comes to you, Ali. Dr. Hocker, it's your turn now, your stage.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very grateful to Catherine that she mentioned how important the European trade is and has been for getting over this crisis, and that she mentioned how important it was that the products were able to cross the inner European borders. And we saw it in Germany a couple of weeks ago, how important also seasonal workers are for Germany, because otherwise we would not have been able to get all the food into our supermarkets that are produced in Germany. So also the flow of workforce has been very important for Europe and for Germany to get over the crisis. Saying that, I'm very convinced about the fact that for the EU presidency of Germany, for the Council, what we need is really to work on is common EU standards. Because nowadays we see that German farmers, for example, have to fulfill much higher standards than farmers, for example, in the southern countries of the EU. And also in the eastern countries of member states of EU, if it comes to animal welfare, if it comes to fertilization or plant protection or everything, 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 consumers say that they are willing to pay higher prices for agricultural products, for food, but just 1 out of 10 consumers are really paying higher prices in the supermarket. And this is a huge gap between what is asked for and what the reality is. And with this situation, we just have it just happens that German farmers who try to fulfill the highest standards are pushed out of the market, and those who fulfill lower standards and their products are bought in Germany, have a success. And this is a result that we cannot want in Germany. That those with higher standards get pushed out of the market because the consumer is not paying the prices that he had to pay for the food that he's it was very nice of the German government to call the agricultural sector system relevant. But what we see at the same time in Germany is that we get more and more bureaucracy. We have a new legislation a couple of weeks ago about the fertilization regulation, which is another bureaucratic burden that is put upon the German farmers. And if we really talk about how we could get through the next crisis, we also have to see that the population of the world is increasing and increasing, and we need intelligent and efficiency in our farming sector that allows us to feed all the mouths. And so with all the wishes and all the polls that we see, I think it's very important to strengthen our agricultural sector, to work on common EU standards, and also to reduce bureaucracy.
Thank you, Dr. Hocke, for your statement. As I said before, we will discuss in the end. So we will first have all the statements and the polling results, and then we discuss all together in the end. So I would like to present the next result of the question number 3. So, while all below categories are important and related, which area of improving the agricultural environment should be focused on first? And number 1, voted by you with 36%, is number C, emissions and climate change. So that's first to be improved. Second, it would be A, soil health. Then third, farmland biodiversity. 6 others, what we don't know what is really exactly meant by this. And D, overall reduction in plant protection product use. When we're talking about issues like that, then organic farming is just right away. And following this, I would like to say, Prince Löwenstein, thank you for your statement now. Stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Katrin has talked about the difference between efficiency of the global food system, where we share the labor, and the vulnerability. And I agree with her that in Europe, our food system is quite resilient, but if you see it at the global scale, things are quite different. Look in the global south, and then we see how very vulnerable the food system is. But the second lesson I would like to stress is that we now see how even minor disturbances are able to create massive problems for almost everybody in the globe, and catastrophes for millions. And seeing that, we have to acknowledge that there are much bigger challenges ahead that create crisis and catastrophes for billions of people. I'm talking about climate change, I'm talking about the biodiversity crisis, I'm talking about the pollution of oceans and all that. So, as Katrin said, the farm-to-fork strategy and the biodiversity strategy came in the right moment, even though I guess it had been planned long before, but it fits entirely into what we have to discuss now. And it is discussed now with very much, I would say, vehemence. People are saying that if we do what is suggested there, then we lose our food security, we will destroy the economic existence of our societies, or at least of our farmers, and all that. The funny thing is, I very often hear, we have to do that because the European consumer asks for it. But that's not the entire truth. The entire truth is we have to do that, because what is at stake is the future of our capability to produce food. Biodiversity, the stability of climate, are things that we need to produce food even in future generations. And this is why we have to change the entire food system as it is suggested in the farm-to-fork strategy. Of course, it is said that we should have 25% organic by 2030, and we all know that you can't command that, but you can direct your tools in a way that this could be possible, and this is what we have to do. But the and of course I agree, because we have there a system which brings all the public services we need from agriculture. But we cannot stop just by converting 25% of our farmland to such a practice. We have to convert the entire farm and food chain, and the symbol for that is going down with pesticide use by 50%. And when we talk about all these things, my impression of all which has been said up to now is that it's not about do we need that, but what kind of instruments do we have to put into place to get that done. And this, most of it is explained in the Farm to Fork strategy. But let's name three things. One is we have to spend the European taxpayers' money, not to distribute it like with a bin on every hectare in the European Union, but to pay farmers for services our societies need from them, and which are not paid by the market. That's very simple, and it's also something which we are not doing right now. Then, of course, we have to change our food and consumption patterns. And we don't have to do that just by asking people to do it or commanding them to do it. But it's a question of prices. Jan told us about true prices. True prices are necessary to make markets function. Our markets are not functioning because those who succeed most to put the costs of their production on future generations and on the community are best in market. That's not functioning markets. So we have to do that, and many tools could be used for that. And one thing is clear. The most silly thing we can do is to do social policies at the expense of environment and the chances of future generations. First of all, because poor people suffer most from the consequences of that. And second, it's the most expensive way to do that. It's much cheaper to have proper social policies and then protect environment and have true prices in food and thus direct food consumption patterns to more sustainable ways to do that. And in the end, of course, we have to protect our farmers. You have said that before, from unfair prices in the market. So if we talk about trade agreements, and we have a lot of them on the table right now, we have to talk about border adjustments when different standards are prevailing. Our commissioner, the president of our commission, for von der Leyen, she has talked about that in the context of carbon costs. But we have to talk about that also in the context of environmental costs. And these three elements could be enough to redirect our food and farm system to a real sustainable food and farm system.
Thank you, Prince Löwenstein, for your statement. I will present the last results of the polling, which all of you voted, hopefully all of you. And this is now question number 4. May I see the slide, please? Thank you. What would most help the business model of European farming? And the biggest majority, or the best people view, like 40% payments for ecosystem services. And second one with 30%, it's the shorter supply chains and direct-to-consumer sales. Then the third place goes to the reinforcing pricing settings powers to reinforcing pricing setting powers for farmers groups. And the last one, increased support through the cap with 6%. The 1 point, shorter supply chains and direct-to-consumer sales. Maybe this is quite something for you, Dr. Julia Köhn. Please do statement now.
What is the price? So the voters were quite wise, voting especially for what we are doing in our company. So Pillars is a platform that is enabling farm-to-fork sales of food. And our mission is to shorten food supply chains by the means of digitalization. And we believe that this is necessary in order to create a more sustainable food system that is more resilient on the one hand side, but on the other hand side also more fair in terms of competition, prices, and also the farmers' incomes. Because if you have direct-to-consumer pricing, then pricing becomes more transparent, and consumers know who they are paying for and what the consequences of their food purchases really are. So we spend a lot of effort in making food supply much more transparent and more efficient. But we are not alone on this journey with Pillars. Pillars is just one of about 250 very innovative companies in the field of food and agriculture in Germany, and there are about 2,000 in all over Europe in this field of new agri-food economy. It's a part of, we are a part of a joint effort that tries to bring about a food system that is on the one hand economically successful, and on the other hand, not harming our environment and also not producing any social costs. So what we want is, we want to use the power of innovation and entrepreneurship in order to bring about business models that really help us to create a whole food supply chain that is really fostering the entrepreneurial spirits of the farmers and also allowing the consumers to buy the food that they really want to buy. And then the kind of the conditions in order to bring about a new agri-food economy in Europe is that we have to stop subsidizing hectares. We have to incorporate the carbon costs, but also the environmental costs of our food production, and we have to foster innovation. Europe, compared to other parts of the world, is investing much too little in innovation in agriculture and food. When it comes, for example, to venture capital, then the US is spending about 1.8 billion per year in venture capital. In Europe, it's about $500 million. And in other parts of the world, the ratio is even worse. So what I would like to talk about today is not only how to make farming more efficient, but how to transition the whole supply chain in order to create a new agri-food economy that is really sustainable.
To make it very clear, maybe I didn't mention it beforehand, the polls, the results I was presenting, these were the answers you just have given in the mentimeter.com. Just to make this clear, we were discussing about it, if this was clear to you as an audience as well. Thank you, Julia, for your statement as well. Now I open the whole discussion to us here in Berlin and also over there in Brussels. And I have some other questions coming from the audience. For example, a question to you, Prince Löwenstein, which the question comes from Zenobiati from LFB. I don't know. Organic farming represents a viable answer to many ecological challenges in agriculture, but as we are currently witnessing decreasingly on its economic challenges. How can we ensure that a new ecological farming era is one where farming income is finally corresponding with farming efforts?
I mean, let's be clear. Of course, you cannot make a European politics which guarantee fair prices to everybody. What you can do is to avoid, for example, surpluses of something which decreases prices in consequence. For example, in the milk market, that's what the case is. It's really funny that nobody talks about reducing milk production, which is made by feed exported from South America to Germany and then or to Europe, and then the nutrients going to the water and being washed down to the sea. All that should be discussed, and but the whole food system we have right now, obviously, is not in the interest of the farmers. That's a funny thing, because farmers are going on their tractors and going to the capital and for manifestations, and they ask for maintaining the actual food system, which is very much negative for them. So we have to do something which gives fair prices to farmers, and this has to do with surplus of food we are producing. You have to do quality production, which makes it much easier to get fair prices from the consumer, and we witness that in our organic market. And in the end, which is fair to the natural resources we all rely on.
Thank you. When you say that the industry is not made for the farmers, then I think of the economy, and then I come to you, Dr. Hocker, because your party, the Free Democrats Party in Germany, is normally very much linked to the economy, I'd say. But also in your statement, you said that nobody really wants to pay the prices. People say, yes, I would like to have organic or at least better quality food, but nobody wants to pay for it. So how you can tell us something about that, about the difference between the economical side and the farming side, which is not a contradiction, I know, but sometimes it's just somehow clear that there are some missing parts in it.
Absolutely, there are some missing parts. The problem is that, if a farmer can produce for much lower costs within a European common market, which we all want, and these products are, available in Germany, for example, and consumers buy these products, we cannot ensure that the standards for the products are as high as those standards that German farmers are having and that they are fulfilling every day. And I think there is also a social pressure. People get asked in a poll or wherever, how would you like to have your food? That these tremendous 90% of the answers who say I'm willing to pay higher prices is also part of a social pressure they may have. They may feel, they may know what would be the correct way to consume. But if it comes finally to the point of sale and the decision has to be made, if I choose this, I don't know, part of a chicken or that one, most of them decide for the chicken for the lower prices, maybe from southern European production or somewhere else. I think many has to do with also the fact how politics and politicians have dealt with the farming sector in Germany during the last years, because farmers are always in that corner that they are almost responsible for almost everything, for the pollution of soil and air and water and everything. But I think the whole picture must be different. Of course, agriculture has a big responsibility for all these matters. However, we have to look on the way how people consume and also on other reasons for the pollution of soil, air, and water, and just putting the responsibility and putting the burden upon the farmers is way too easy. But because this is happening since a couple of years, I think that society is following this very, for them, easy way to give responsibility away from themselves, from the way how they consume, to those who are producing the food and the agricultural products.
Yes, please.
May I add something? Wherever I'm talking to somebody in Europe, every country, the farmers believe that it's them only having the most rigorous standards.
This is even within valleys. I come from the mountain area, and in every valley, people tell me, "Oh, in our valley, it's really worse with the neighbors."
As a matter of fact, I believe that, grosso modo, we have quite good competition all over Europe. That's what European policy is about, to guarantee that. And of course, there's always things which can be made better. But our problem is maybe a bit that we have to have a level playing field with the entire world, because we have a globalized market, and that includes that we have to create trade agreements on considering standards as well.
Absolutely.
And not just overlooking them.
Absolutely.
As has been done in all the other, because all the standards you read in these trade agreements are not at all obliging. It's just just text.
Right.
And then we can ask farmers to do what they want to do, to protect environment, to treat animals right, and all that. Because farmers, if they get the price for it, are willing to do that.
True.
So it's not a question about accusing farmers when you discuss these matters. And I'm not at all in favor of pulling this discussion down to such an emotional level. It's a fact. And now let's, together with the farmers, I'm a farmer myself, look for solutions for that. But not say, you society, you're accusing me all the time. No, that's not the level we are talking about. Let's talk about the solutions. And it's us who can contribute to that.
Yeah, but I was asked for the link between the consumers and the farmers, and I think this is the link between them. If farmers can really get the prices for the products that they produce, that they need to become. And if you look at the standards, for example, if it comes to animal welfare, look at how cows or chicken or whatever is in how the circumstances are in Germany compared to, for example, Southern European agricultural system. If you have a look how they really live, I believe that the standards in Germany are higher. And also, if you look, historically back how chicken and cow and pig have been held 30 or 40 years ago, there is a tremendous and huge innovation has been going on. We are having debates today, we are having discussions that has never been held 20, 30 or 40 years ago, and that are not proceeded in other parts of the world. But I still believe that we are on a very, very high standard in Germany. And of course there are also, things that you could increase and could improve. However, I think they're getting bored because we are debating too long.
We have the reactions from Brussels on that. I'm looking forward to what Catherine will say.
Catherine, now I'm doing something not very nice, but I think you nodded your head about what he was saying, so please say it to all of us, please.
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't want to be impolite.
Sorry, behind the scenes, but it was just such a...
No, okay. I just wanted to maybe come back to this very important subject that you're raising, which is in relation, sir, which is in fact also the level playing field, which is something very important both within the European Union, and in principle it should be, and we should make sure that we properly implement, our EU regulations so that there is a fair, level playing field for all farmers wherever they live and they work. And then also a level playing field when it comes to imported product from third countries, and that's very essential. And I think that there is an increasing debate in our society, and of course it is a worry for our farmers, but also for our consumers, that it may be that we import products that have not the same standards as the one we produce in Europe. And maybe let me just say a couple of things quickly, which is trade is beneficial in that sense. It is important for us to remain an open European economy, that's for sure. But it needs to be said that there are some important conditions. We first of all need to continue to protect our agriculture and the sensitivity of certain products and sectors. That's part of what we said about the importance of having, our autonomy, ensure our food security, and making sure that our farmers are not unfairly exposed to international agricultural markets. So that's why our bilateral EU agreement, are important with quotas and tariffs. So that's very important. we need also to ensure that the imported product also comply with our EU standards, the regulation, so that we don't, with this product, we don't damage, food safety in particular. That's very important for our consumers. So that's why also we need to improve the way it works now. And the Farm to Fork strategy has recognized that. For example, when it comes to pesticides, there are many pesticides which are not authorized in Europe and that are authorized in other regions of the world, part of the world, for many reasons. And some are not authorized and they may be considered even unsafe for our consumers. So it is important to say that here the Farm to Fork strategy is proposing a new approach where we are going to look at how we can make sure that, we will not only strengthen, or look at safety, food safety when it comes to the import of product containing these pesticides, but also look at the impact on environment, meaning that it's important for us not just to look at safety, but also to look at environment, and that there may be double standards, which is not acceptable for our farmers. It is important also to say that in our future trade agreement, and that's a commitment of the new Commission, we need also to make sure that we will develop in the bilateral EU agreement chapters on food sustainability, on sustainability. So it means not just looking at the fact that we need to have a good deal from an economic point of view, but that as providing leadership when it comes to sustainability, we will also promote sustainability through our trade agreement and encourage our commercial partner also to put in place, roll out, sustainable practices and methods for their production. And last but not least, I think we need not only to be defensive on that subject, but maybe also to be more innovative and offensive. And in particular, I was thinking, when we developed this Farm to Fork strategy, we have thought that it's not just about regulating, it's not just about, making good deals with our partner. Why don't we evaluate, better promote the high level of standards that our production have in Europe? And why don't we develop, a labeling scheme or an information scheme for our consumers so that they can also, when they buy product, recognize that these products are produced according not only the EU regulation, which is already at a high level of standards in terms of food safety, but also that it respects production methods like animal welfare, respect of the environment, and consumers' expectation. And that's something that we have included in the Farm to Fork strategy, where we want to work with stakeholders and see what could be the different tools, not necessarily public, but can be also private schemes, that would help consumers tomorrow to better recognize, not only for organic product, obviously, because it already works for organic product, but how we could help consumers to change their consumption habit and recognize those products for which there has been efforts from the key players in the food chain to produce, better respecting the environment, better respecting the climate, better respecting also the position of farmers in the food chain. So all the elements of sustainability. So that's something on which we would like to engage with the key players in the food chain.
Thank you, Catherine. Another question that occurred to me just in your first statements, both of you, Janitz and Catherine. The topic of today is food system resilience, sustainability, and the COVID-19 crisis. And I was wondering, had there been a problem with the resilience of the food system? Has there been a problem in the past, in the very recent past, with the crisis? Or is it now a question of sustainability? Because now we're talking about communicating the qualities and also pricing in the true costs. But had it been also a resilience problem, or everything was there in place, but maybe not with the production as we would like to have it? Janitz or Catherine, please.
Depends how you understand resilience. I think it's in the context how you have explained it, it's one context, but I do believe that the whole economic system is actually not very much resilient system. By the way, we knew many of the things already in advance, including the potential of the health outbreak as we have faced, but we simply did not take the things seriously, and we didn't prepare neither the health systems nor the other systems, nor we have this, which is clearly connected also with how we are handling the biodiversity, how we are handling many of the questions which are connected to, I don't know, to safety, security rules and so on, which are obviously all questions of this resilience which we would need to create. So if it's one lesson I think we should all learn from this COVID crisis, it's for me pretty simple. So the possibility of the health-related outbreaks as we are currently seeing, or the extreme weather events which are connected to climate change will very likely increase. So get ready, get prepared, and when we talk about that, we talk about resilience. If I can just comment one thing, because I think with the logic which we have previously evolved when it comes to the food prices, we are starting the things a bit wrongly. So if you will start with the question, are consumers willing to pay higher prices? You will never make a food system sustainable. So we are functioning on the markets. Markets are getting clear signals. And the fair question, of course, would be if those signals and which are leading to sustainable economies are such that part of our societies cannot afford something which is terribly important that it can afford, that's the food which we all need for our life, how to help them and how to make the things that they can actually afford it. That's a very fair question. But when it comes to the question of the prices itself, when I try to explain in the simplest way what our economy today stands, this is pretty much like that. Productive capital break its financial capital, it's overvalued and over-rewarded. Human capital, it's undervalued and under-rewarded. And natural capital, in many cases, is not valued and not rewarded at all. If somebody thinks that from those signals on the market, we will get an economy and society which is in socio-economic environmental balance, come on, wake up, because this will never happen. So we have to go to the signals which, as long as we are functioning on the markets, and we have to go back to the signals, and we have to start dealing seriously with those questions. And of course, this is immediately then leading to the next question, which some of the gentlemen and ladies also opened already. That's the question, of course, that Europe, it's not functioning in isolated world. So it's the question of how you actually organize level playing field, how you organize standards which everybody is obeying. But again, if there is one lesson which is clear from the COVID-19, and by the way, it's also clear from the European Green Deal, it's that we are for the first time, we are the first generation which is living in the world which is interconnected and dependent of a global scale. So there are no local economies, there are no local problems. We are interconnected. And if we want to solve those questions, we need to cooperate more. And that's essentially what we have to do on EU level, but also on the global level. So that's the last sentence. Yeah. If you want, the real question with the price is the price which includes the fair production costs, including externalities, and it's providing decent life for farmers. If that is the price which the market is delivering, it's the right price. If somebody cannot deal with that, help him, treat it, and rather make the distribution of income in different way so that everybody can afford that it could have a price under a fair cost.
Thank you. I got a question from the audience, which fits right this too. It's from Natasha Food, and it goes to you, Julia. The importance of trade across borders in the EU has been stressed throughout this event, but during the COVID-19 crisis, we have seen the rise of protectionist strategies and sentiments across member states, with many working to promote and support local or national agriculture and discourage imported goods. Is this a concern? How can this be reconciled with the EU's commitment to support free trade? And I went through all the questions people, when registering, submitted, and as well there's many questions pointed in that direction about nationalism, protectionism, and we're talking about interconnection. So what would you say about that, maybe also at the German Council now or whatever?
So this COVID-19 crisis pointed to a fact that is inherent to every economy of the world, to our world economy, namely uncertainty. So we are living in an economy that is interconnected, that is complex and reflexive. So things that are happening in Germany have a lot to do with things that are happening in China and reverse. And if you look at complex dynamic systems, this is what uncertainty is producing. In mathematics or physics or whatever, then you get at points where there is unpredictability, which is a necessary consequence of uncertainty. And in systems that are unpredictable, protectionism is the worst thing you can do.
Why is that?
Because if you start protecting, then you are kind of cutting off the information flow between the parts of the whole system. And then collapses within parts of the system become much more likely than if you leave those connections open. So this is why I believe that this nationalism, this regionalism, this localism that we are at the moment talking about is completely the wrong way. We have to talk about transparency, we have to talk about more information, we have to talk about interconnections, we have to talk about intelligent, digitalized systems, we have to talk about prices that are really transforming information from one part of the system to another part of the system. This mechanism is fundamentally broken, the price mechanism, especially in the food economy, because there is no incentive for a consumer to buy decent food. And there's also no incentive for a farmer to produce decent food, sustainable food. It just does not make sense. And we all believe in a market economy. And if we are serious in that we want to live in a market economy in an open society, then we have to fix the price system. Because the price system is the most fundamental mechanism in economics that is enabling trade, collaboration, and also success in an uncertain economy. So talking about more standards, more regulations, about local food only does not make sense. We have a lot of people out there that are pretty intelligent, and if they get the right information, then they will take the right decisions. We believe in a rational choice model, usually in economics. At the moment, nobody is believing in rational choice, and I don't get why. Because what the crisis just showed us, the COVID outbreak showed us, yes, of course, there has been struggles, but it could have been much worse. And in a society which would have been less open than our society, it would have been a mass catastrophe. And what I experienced in this crisis was, yes, it was not nice, and a lot of my neighbors really got in trouble, but nobody died out of hunger, nobody died out of empty supermarkets. And of course, there's a lot to do now to recover and to use the Schumpeterian moment to create a new agri-food system that is really fostering sustainable decisions by consumers and farmers in the future, because then they will bring about a new equilibrium by themselves, which is better for society, environment, and also for the economy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think I need to wrap up because we're already at 3 minutes before time. I know, I just feel like the same. It's like a very interesting discussion, and somehow you have to break it also from Brussels. But to me, it's very interesting that not only in the end, but it's in the end because we are living in an economy which functions by prices, then in the end it's a matter of price, no matter if you're a consumer buying things or you a farmer selling things. And I think this question is still not really answered. I hope I don't disagree with any here. I think we need to put these prices more to the type of production and also put the quality inside. And so to answer from the topic of this conference, also working on the sustainability, which is also a big emphasis for the new policy now. I have some questions here left, and I think there's still some questions open, but you can discuss also on social media going on there, and you could discuss also with us. You can send us your questions as well, because it will go on the discussion from FFA online and also with hopefully live events as well in Brussels again. And so don't stop here, also you. But for today, I want to thank you. 3 speakers here, thank you very much for your contributions. Also in Brussels, thank you, Catherine, thank you, Janitz. And also to you, the audience, you submitted so many questions. I went through them, also the team from FFA, which was behind the scenes and made this all possible. And thank you again to our partners, because in the end, yes, it's about prices and also money, so somebody has to pay for it all. Thank you very much, and hopefully to see you somewhere soon. Bye-bye from Berlin.